So please welcome Natalie Sudman to the show. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, thank you. And all the way from Minnesota.
Yep.
I was telling you before we hit record, it's so fun. I'm going on my fifth year having this podcast and heading up into getting ready to hit 300 in probably a couple months. And it's just been an amazing journey and learning from people like you that come into my life and know that when people like you and your stories come into my path, I know it's for a reason and I know I'm to learn something from you. And when I have these amazing people that listen to the show reach out to me and say, you have to have Natalie Sudman on the show. I'm like, okay, let's go. So then I go and invite you. And that was a while back. And then get your book. And I just I'm like in awe of your journey and, what it made me feel like, what your story made me feel like was when you look back at your life and now knowing that you've had that near death experience and you see what it from that perspective that we choose everything and it's just this movie we're playing and we have all the people in our life are playing their parts for us to learn and we're all one. But when you're little and you start having you were experiencing things when you were little, so I feel like it was leading you up to becoming to having this like experience in Iraq. Do you tell me how you look at your life now? And then maybe we'll go into in a little background before we get into questions that I can't wait to share with everybody.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that I think that everything was leading up to what happened to me in Iraq. I think that there could have been lots of other choices and maybe better choices than getting blown up in Iraq. I think,
Right?
I
You
think,
think?
yeah, I think that there are other ways of learning, the same thing or other ways um, of teaching the same thing too. I mean, not overtly teaching something, but I think we all teach each other.
Yes.
And I think that our experiences, whether we consider them small or sort of transformative, they inform the collective, they inform everybody because we're all connected. And I think that something that happens through violence can make a big impact. But I think that maybe it would have been better if I had been able to create a different trajectory and do the same thing through love instead
Mhm.
of violence, for instance.
But when you so thinking of that and you're like thinking of the Y in the road and your soul chose to get bombed, get like killed basically in Iraq. And if you could have chosen the other Y in the road, and that would have been through a loving experience, not a traumatic near death experience, where does that decision play in your free will as a human or in
Yeah,
your
I think
soul?
so. I think the idea of us, of the soul creating every experience is, I think I would approach that differently now, or I would talk about it differently now. I think that there's a lot of creation that we do from this place of this personality self that we are inhabiting, um, or or decisions and choices that are made in conjunction with this personality self, and um, and creating everything that we experience may not be so direct as I maybe used to think it was. I think that um, part of part of experiencing what we create, it may be that we created something 2 months ago, and then we're going to experience the consequences of that. Not because we planned those consequences, but because we're in a cause and effect universe that's a communal universe. And so um, there are there are kind of rules to the game, and they may not be set in concrete, but for the most part, we're going to experience through the quote unquote rules that are kind of set up in this reality, right? So we
Right.
have cause and effect, and it may not be that I very deliberately said, well, I'm going to get blown up. But it may be that I set up one after another, a lot of choice after choice, leading me to this experience. And uh, what I think is more important than believing that we set up every single experience that we have is the fact that no matter what we experience, uh, there can be found purpose in that experience. There will be value in that experience, no matter what that experience is.
Right. Because it's growth. We're here, our souls we came here to be expanded and growing and learning. But when I look back at your story and all those people in that truck that what were affected, someone died, one person died.
Mhm. Yeah.
So in that mindset, when you're all in the same experience, are you all, since we're all one, but we're all connected, did you choose that? You all made that choice to be in that vehicle that day to experience that? Or is everyone in that car, in that truck, on their own trajectory, everything is meaning something different to each soul, that experience?
Yeah, good question. I would say that on one level, everyone's fulfilling something specific for themselves, but we are all connected, and you can look at things from different perspectives, from um, building building a house looks different for the architect than it does for the person with the hammer pounding the
Right.
nails. Looks very different. And I think that this also, we can say, oh, each of those individuals had their own reason for being present that day. And yet, I think that there has to be some level of agreement um, on a broader, from a broader perspective, that um, that this may serve some purpose, or that we can find a communal purpose to this, um, a shared communal purpose on some level. It's a good question.
Well, I started thinking, you think of like airplane crashes, for example,
Mhm.
like were they all in that airplane in their soul, like they all decided to have that experience and, like we're all connected. So you wonder, how does that come into play? Those choices to make that plane ticket and to get on the airplane or, any of those.
Yeah, I do think on that kind of level that the soul, if a soul thinks that experience is not going to serve them, I think that they remove themselves from that. There were a lot of people who didn't show up for work at the World Trade Center that
Right.
day, or they miss their plane and that plane crashes. I think that the soul, I think that the soul has sort of the ultimate um, veto power or choice power. I think that a soul, our own souls will give us a lot of leeway, but I think they will move us out of what doesn't serve us. That's just my idea of
Yeah,
that.
I can see that. And you also explained to me too, in a way, I mean, I learned something new from you it's kind of funny to, see your life like from your higher self, from outside of this body, when you like lose your eye, lose your arm, and you're like, wow, look at that. Isn't that fun? Because it's such a, it's like a humor. Like you're thinking, oh, let's see how you handle life this way with this
Yeah,
problem.
I mean, if you're thinking of, I guess the perspective might be like if you were um, writing a book, or if you were working on a movie, you're not, if you're going to hurt someone, you're not like, oh no, oh, how can I do that to this person? You know, you're like,
Right.
okay, what's going to serve the story? Let's try this. Oh my God, look at what happens then. No, 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 let's try this instead. And it can be entertaining
Yeah.
because you understand that on from the level you're looking at it from, that person is not really hurt.
Right.
That person is in a way is an extension of you, but it's not real. You're not really having that experience. You're going to get up and walk out of the room, or you're going to get up and walk out of that movie, and you're okay.
Right.
And that's kind of the perspective I think that I had when I was, in a way, choosing my injuries
Right.
in order
Let's
to.
go there. Let's go to your so because I'm gonna get ahead of myself here. I see myself going, oh wait, people need to understand what happened that day when
Mhm.
where you went and what you saw and how you experienced your life in your soul's experience out of your body.
Yeah, so I was a federal employee of the Army, working over in Iraq, administering construction contracts. And that day I was going outside the wire, outside the base, with an armed escort, which is how we always traveled outside base. And I was with three other colleagues. So we had a four-vehicle convoy. The front vehicle was all guards. My vehicle, I think, was second, and I had a colleague beside me, and there was a driver and a guard in front of me. And then there was another truck behind us with two more of my colleagues, and a gun truck in the back that had, I forget, two or three guards in it. And we had been out all day. We were on our way home, and my vehicle was hit with the roadside bomb. The um, well, um, I was kind of half asleep. I had my head on my arm, or head on the, yeah, head on my hand with my arm resting on the truck door. And when that bomb went off, I was immediately somewhere else. I found myself standing on like a little stage, and there were thousands of beings just all around like a stadium. And I was downloading information to them. And and when I was finished with that, I told them that I wasn't interested in going back. I was done. They said, "Well, what if you did this?" And I went, "Oh, okay." Immediately changed my mind. Um, I'm just going to go through this really quickly. The book goes through this in great detail, but then I blinked to another place that I call the deep rest environment, where I had a form of a life review that really kind of didn't follow some classic forms of life review, and from what I know of them. And um, and I went into this very, very deep state of rest. A couple of beings came and sort of felt like they were uh, tinkering around inside me, like they were fixing a car, kind of that kind of thing. Um, but I didn't really interact with them. And when I was done there, I blinked back to, I call it blinked because it's just so fast, the movement. I was back with the thousands of beings, and we kind of discussed some details of what I was going to do. Then I blinked to another environment where I was kind of hovering above the vehicle, and that vehicle was down on the desert, clearly been blown up. I could see it as we might view it, and I could also see it as organizations of energy. I could see us, each of the four of us in the truck. And I was with two other beings. One of them felt like a really old friend. The other felt like maybe learning from us or observing or something. But this friend and I were having a lot of fun trying different injuries on my body. We would kind of do the equivalent of waving a hand, and and cut off my right arm, and then see kind of a um, in 1 second, kind of see a whole trajectory of my life with that arm cut off, or put shrapnel in my brain and watch a whole sequence of my life flash. Um, and we thought that was really hilarious. That's what you and I were talking about. That was
Right.
so funny to see these, to see how they would affect my life. And obviously they're not funny now, but they were
Right.
very funny then. And finally, I just chose the injuries that I wanted, and I then blinked to another place. I was standing right next to the vehicle with 8 or 9 other beings, and we were discussing what I had agreed to do, but discussing it from a very um, on the ground kind of perspective. And when I was done, when we were done talking, I just popped back into my body. And the vehicle was still rolling down the road. And yeah, so then I dealt with that aftermath.
Right. When they say this is what you choose to come back because you're going to do something, and I know you don't share that message and you keep it to yourself
Mhm.
because you talk about judgment and people looking at hierarchy of I'm better than you because here on this planet to do this and you're only doing the dishes at the restaurant, and how I live, but it's so, when you understand that, even like as a mom for me with my girls, it made me realize, teaching them like everyone has a role to play. There's nothing better and nothing worse. When you're choosing like my oldest is first year of college, and we're talking about careers and what interests you and what, follow your passion and what you love, and that's what should guide you. But nothing is the president of whatever it is. There's no hierarchy. Will you explain that, what you saw and how you interpreted that?
Yeah, we all come here for our own reasons. And um, we as human beings say, oh, the CEO is more important than the person washing dishes in the restaurant because they have more obvious influence to us. But from a higher self point of view, there's no one's doing anything more important than the other person. We're all doing what we came here to do, and we're all in this together. We all we are all only as strong as the weakest link. And so um, I think if I think what's more important is what kind of presence we bring to what we're doing. Are we If we're aware that we are infinite beings having an experience through this body and through this personality, if we bring that awareness to anything that we do, we're waking up the world. We're blessing everything that we do and everything that we touch. And that's what's important. A homeless person may have much more actual um, profound influence simply by being present than a CEO who is really thinks only about acquisition or power, worldly power. It
Right.
really matters more what we bring to what we do than what we do.
Right. I was listening to you on some podcast, and I sat I come to the corner at this light usually, and there's a homeless person on the side, with a sign. And I started thinking, okay, he is me. He is me, I am him. And so if you came to that corner and saw that homeless man, how do you interpret that? And when you see him with that sign, that's his choice, and that's you too.
Yeah, it is. Might not be his personality's choice, but if he was, we have free will, and maybe choice by choice, that's where he ends up. And that is a level of allowance, allowing ourselves, agreeing to our experience. And and somebody said, well, then, why help him out if he's having the experience that he chose to have? And I think that doesn't mean we don't lend a hand, because that's me, like you said. I mean, that's an aspect of me. And
Right.
I would hope that if I needed it, someone would reach out a hand. Maybe, maybe that's also part of um, what he is creating, an opportunity for some of us to reach out a hand. I don't know, be a good person, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Easy
that
to say,
doesn't
right?
mean,
When you
yeah, it
live in
is.
this
I
world.
mean, yeah, it is hard. It is. And sometimes maybe the best you can do is look at that person and say, I see you as a whole being. I see you as the infinite being that you are, beyond what you are presenting to me as this homeless person on a corner. I think you are holy. And maybe I can't give him $5 that day. Maybe I can't give him 50 cents. Maybe I don't have any way to help him. But blessing him with that, I see you, is powerful.
Hmm.
We talk about energy being real. Well, then use it, you know?
Right.
That's real when you see someone like that. That's real.
Talk about energy because I know you talk about that, and I think now with like where we're at in this world, the healing and the energy and the vibration and all those words that we speak very often now, it's part of our vocabulary and understanding that we are energy. How do you see from now, from seeing our, from being in the other realm or
Hmm.
wherever, and you can see the energy. That's how you understand that that's all we are is energy. We never die. We're just a little aspect of our souls is in this body right now until this body is done.
Yeah, I think of who we really are as points of consciousness, points of awareness who are experiencing through these organizations of energy that are form. I was given once in meditation this picture of uh, one person imagining this reality, and then another person coming and going, "Oh, what have you got there? That looks interesting," and kind of um, also concentrating on this new picture of what this reality is and how it's organized and who's in it and how do they interact. And then another being comes and goes, "Oh, what's that you guys are doing?" And pretty soon that reality uh, gained a form of stability. And after enough beings had their attention on it, sort of held their attention on it, then it no longer required their attention. It had formed its own stability and uh, and operated along its own sort of natural laws, if you want to call it that. And and I thought, oh, that makes sense to me that um, that this reality is a created reality and created um, in a way that gained its own sort of stability, and yet all it is and everything in it is organizations of energy held in place by our own beliefs. You know, we can't stick our hand through the wall because we don't believe we can stick our hand through the wall.
Mhm.
Um, I think that our our beliefs, well, obviously, our beliefs become our reality, and that goes all the way uh, from what we believe we can and can't do as individual personalities, all the way um, to the organization, the sort of fundamental organization of energy that is our reality.
Yeah, I was listening to Greg Braden. You listened to him, right?
Hmm.
I'm assuming, but anyway, I was listening to him yesterday talking about how where we're going right now is to remembering how powerful we are, and that
Hmm.
we have been so blocked by beliefs and things we've been taught, and all the years of, I mean, hundreds of years before us. And now we're at this place where we're now starting to remember the power and how it's going to turn into, healing and telepathy, all the psychicness, the medium, all the things that you do, um, is where we're all going, because the veil is getting thinner and thinner.
Yeah, I would the way that's sort of given to me is that we did this experiment in separation. Like what happens what happens if we believe that we're separate? What happens if we don't if we believe that we're separate from the one, that we're separate from each other, that that we're separated even from the very souls of ourselves, and then what happens? Well, we've kind of found out what happens.
Right.
It creates fear, and fear creates all kinds of really horrible things. And I think that we've kind of taken that experiment as far as we can go. We're repeating ourselves, and we'll kind of take ourselves to the brink of destruction. And so what it looks like to me is that we've all agreed that it's time to shift the experiment and see now, can we walk ourselves home? Can we bring ourselves back to ourselves, knowing that we are infinite beings having this experience here? And how does that change our potentials for experience here in this kind of world of form? I think it obviously it opens up a whole different set of potentials.
Right. When if looking at it from our higher self and knowing what that looks like from that experience, do you and understanding every time is all at once. There's no past, present, or future. But talk about when you're up there and you can see the future, like explain how you see it from that perspective, um, as much as a human mind can take how you explain it. But when you say like we're at this point, this breaking point in the world, in this history, in this planet, where it has to go to that place. That's where we're going. We can't keep repeating. It's like this cycle that we're at a breaking point, and we all are feeling it. I mean, people are waking up, right? That's another word that happens a lot in our vocabulary. But from that perspective, from your higher self, from that place that you went to, explain how you see that time and future and all the things like that.
Wow, yeah. When I go to a place of no time, it doesn't imply that things don't happen sequentially. And I don't know how to describe that
Right.
other
See?
than just saying that. Because we don't really have concepts for that. I think there are things, well, I know there's things that I experienced that I didn't really bring into the book because I don't know how to explain them. I know them intuitively. They make sense intuitively, and as soon as I try to put words to them, they don't make sense.
Hmm.
We don't have concepts. And and I think that we don't really have a no time concept. Um, I think that we assume that no time means nothing happens sequentially. We think that because everything is present, um, that we don't experience it sequentially. But I think we always can experience it sequentially. It might just be a different sequence. What if we organized our perception um, by emotional content, so that instead of um, instead of saying that I was young, and then I was a young adult, and then I was adult, and then I was elderly? What if I said, I first I was angry, and then I was um, confused, and then I was a little more stable, and then I was happy. Our lives would be, our experiences would be organized, but they would be organized very, very differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's possible to perceive or to think about the soul's experience maybe in in some way like that. Oh, am I answering the question? No.
Yes, but like when you think of so it is hard for a human to wrap their head around what time is, and I have understood it better and better as I am along this growing plan or path of mine.
Mhm.
But when I think of, you look what I'm doing now from my lineage, I look at it as a mom, like, what am I doing for my children? Am I clearing things? Am I, you know, teaching them something there was something that kept coming up into my family line, like changing that trajectory for them to
Right.
go into, changing the future, like trying to do things now that will clear the past in that past lineage and then the future. Is that correct?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. And as far as sort of the trajectory of humanity, um, I think that it's not ever a done deal. I do think we have free will. I think that from what I'm shown, we've all agreed to this kind of walking each other home. We've agreed to wake back up to who and what we are, um, to wake up out of that lie of, in a sense, of separation. Um, but I think that we still have to walk through it. There's still value in walking through
Right.
an experience. We can think something and we go, oh, yeah, I understand it. But then you walk through it and you're like, oh, no, I didn't understand that.
Right.
This is very different. And so I think there's great value in the experience of that. And that, I think that a lot of potentials are sitting there available to us. And there are a lot of ways to walk each other home. And there's a lot of ways that could go a little bit off the rails, or maybe all the way off the rails. I don't know. I think that we could probably um, do things in a way that's not so disruptive, and I think we can do things in a really messy way. Um, I don't, I don't know, I don't know that that's written. We think, oh, if everything is present at once, we must know what the
Right.
outcome is, but all outcomes are present as well.
Right.
So which outcome are we going to choose to follow?
And we all choose because we can all, like they always say, like the new earth and 3D, 5D, like they're still going to be in the 3D, but if you start, awakening and understanding the power of your evolution and you start living in the fifth dimension and they'll still be the people that live in fear and live over here in this place, right?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't use all those words, and so I don't really fully understand what people mean by them, maybe. I think that um, humanity is a whole, and either we're all lifted or we're not. And
Hmm.
I think we're responsible to each other. I think that yeah, I don't know how anybody could be sort of left behind. That doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, yeah, I love that because you have taught me that more. That's opened my eyes more to understanding. Because there is no separation. That would be a separation if we
Hmm.
had that belief,
Yeah, I
right?
think so.
But
I
when
think
we,
so. I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
maybe that belief in separation is still available to for beings to experience. I don't know. It kind of, I don't know. It doesn't, I could be totally wrong, but it doesn't kind of make sense to me.
right.
Yeah.
But when you think of, we come to Earth School, right? This is
Hmm.
school, and our mission as a soul is to grow. If we don't have contrast and struggles and all the things that we have chosen as experiences um, or subconsciously, then why even come to Earth School, right? Like,
Well, I
every,
don't think being aware of who we are means that we are free of challenges. I think that even once we leave this world, there's lots of worlds, worlds of form and worlds of form that are not as solid as ours, or there's other kinds of worlds, and I think we have lots of experiences through those, and simply as a pure higher self. I think that it's not. Uh, I think to assume that when we leave here, we have no more struggles. What's the fun of that?
right. Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Do
think we're
you,
still going to have challenges and maybe meet them. Um, maybe we meet them not feeling so worried about or fearful of things,
mhm.
but I still think we meet challenges.
Do you see from the higher, like our soul in completeness is like there's fractals of my soul in this body. There's my soul is experiencing other worlds in other experience and in other dimensions, other planets. You're everywhere all at
Yeah, I
once.
think there's lots of, uh, well, an image that I'm often given is of a like a bicycle wheel,
Oh
and
yeah.
say my soul, my higher self is the bicycle wheel, and each of those spokes is an experience that we might call a lifetime, and that whole self can concentrate individually in any one lifetime, or it can concentrate on itself as a whole, or it can maybe it can put its concentration on all those spokes at once. I mean, we're I think we're a lot more adept at things than we are as personalities, and um, and all of those things, all of those spokes exist at once, which maybe, we can't understand how that could all be, but I think there are ways to think about it. I mean, I can wash the dishes and keep track of the kids in the other room and daydream about something and um, I don't know, look out the window and watch a bird. We can do more things than we think we're doing at once. And I
Right.
think that as whole selves, we certainly have a lot of
Right.
capability that we
Right.
don't have as personalities. Um, I think that the whole self can have probably has a very, very rich experience that's maybe larger than I have concept for.
Right. You talk about like a radio station. I mean, I grew up with the car radio, like you
Hmm.
described, with the red dial, and I'm picturing that when you're explaining that, and how it's just a matter of finding that frequency when you
Hmm.
turn the dial, and how you can connect with, the someone that has passed over, and I understand that because my dad passed away, and I've learned through people like you how to connect to that.
Hmm.
And it's understanding that I'm just turning that knob just a little bit here, right? Will you
Hmm.
explain it from how you see it?
Yeah. So when I do a psychic reading, or when I do a um, connect with someone who's crossed over, the way I think about it is that I'm looking for the right channel to connect with that information. My understanding is that everything is here. Everything's available. I mean, this reality exists within the non-physical. It's not separate from, it's part of the non-physical. So everything should be available to us. And I think that everything is available to us. And so it's simply a matter of finding the right channel or the right frequency to tune into. And I'm I'm very spatial, and so for me, imagining a radio dial out in front of me, the old time one with the little red
Yeah.
line that moves through the frequencies, that's a very real way for my mind to grasp changing of frequencies. Um, so I use that visual and just kind of gradually move through the frequencies to get to the information that I'm looking for. And I trust that I've done it long enough that I trust that I can end up where I need to be. But I've had a number of clients tell me that's been a useful way of thinking about it for them to kind of learn to tune in, whether it's trying to connect with their guides or connect with somebody who's crossed over or just connect with their higher self and get some answers to their own questions.
Right. Do you connect with your guides through meditation? Like, how do you connect? What do you do as Natalie to connect?
Uh, well, sometimes like I could connect right now, I think. Because I've done it so much. If I really want to like deeply connect, then I'll meditate. I'll try to um, I'll try to go in pretty deep so that I kind of feel like I move out of my own way. But I think that it's the more you practice, the easier obviously it becomes for anyone with anything, right?
Right.
And and so I've done readings for many years now, and so it's kind of second nature to simply move at least part of my attention to a frequency that opens that communication.
Right. And I've had readings and I automatic write and I understand it, and it is a practice. And I
Mhm.
feel like, people are like, why can't I do what you do? Like the hierarchy, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, it is the practice. Okay, so you've written, your book is beautiful. You write
Thank you.
amazing. And I wrote this quote down. I don't think I've done it maybe in my podcasting life twice, but I wrote it down because it really kind of struck a chord and I wanted to read it to you because I want people to understand, like, I don't know, just I'm going to read it and this is and you'll probably where did that come from? It's not from your book. It's from
Okay.
I read it. As we remember who and what we really are, infinite aspects of the one, souls, the potentials for experience in form must shift, the shape of this reality must shift. Everything has to change to come back into alignment, coherence, our natural harmonic with each other. And then I just wrote a quote to embody the highest self within, no matter what is encountered. You just write. So, what is that when read that to you? What is that? Where did that come from? What do you see in that?
Where did it come from? It probably came from my higher self because I'm a personality and yeah, if I could do that all the time, right?
Oh,
If we
geez.
could all do that all the time. I mean, I think that really that's the essence of what I know.
Yeah,
That is it, in a nutshell. That if we can embody who we really are, that everything around this world of form will will also lift to that frequency, and
right,
everything we know will change.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It really hit me. And then personalities. So I also learned, and I've learned from somewhat, I mean, I've learned it somewhere else, but the personality of Ashley and the personality of Natalie never change. It is the same personality as this soul, as this body is gone. You wrote something about nine personalities.
The nine personalities that I met were separate beings. I mean, I perceived them as separate beings. I think that, yeah, I think I would agree that this personality um, is who I am. I think that as a higher self, I'm more me. I'm completely fearless, which allows me to be more me. I think that a lot of people think, oh, my higher self is so much better than me, or it's got to be different than me, or I don't want to let go of this person that I am because this is a person that you know. You're not going to lose yourself. You actually become more yourself as
Right.
you embody that infinite being that you are.
When you think of death and yourself, like you decided to come back because they gave you this great thing to do when you got excited about coming back into your body. But you're saying you live in Minnesota again because your parents are older and you're just going to be with them. Do you, how do you reflect on death when you're dealing with parents or your own death? How do you see that from now, like now after your experience from that moment in Iraq?
It's just a transition. I think that, um, well, we fear what we don't know or what we don't understand. And um, and this culture doesn't really talk about death or what in a very realistic way, what that transition might be like or what to look forward to. I think that a lot of people who are coming to the end of their lives um, think about all the things they miss, all the things they can't do anymore. Like my elderly mother is sad because she can't do a lot of the things that she used to do. She doesn't feel valuable to anyone.
Hmm.
Um, Whereas when I can shift her attention to what what might be ahead of her, oh, you're going to see dad again. You're going to see your sisters again. How does that feel? Then, it changes the experience of now when there's something to look forward to, or um, when you view this as a transition instead of simply an ending.
Right. And I mean, I just, when you say you're going to see your dad and your sisters, because when you went to the other side, were you greeted by there was familiar people on the stage, like when you were in that place, like there was people there that did you know for sure it was people that you had had in your family that had passed on?
I don't have memory of meeting family members, but lots and lots and lots of people who have had NDEs were met by their family members. And I think we can set that up right now, with our intentions. Our intentions don't stop at the end of our physical body's life. We set intentions as a point of consciousness that's inhabiting this body. So set up an intention if there's somebody that you want to see, or imagine that there's a place, a beautiful place that you will go when you leave this body, and that other people that you love will be there to meet you. And I think that's valid. I think that's real. I think you can do that.
I'm a huge believer in intentions and setting, like just being at the new year, like my word for the year. And, and then I see it's like a magnet to
Mhm,
what you intend, right? And I teach that to my daughters, like every day have some kind of intention and watch the magic. You're the magnet to that intention, but you
mhm.
feel like that same thing. And I was listening to you earlier on another podcast about like even visualize the visualization, the intention, like how you can create, like you just said, in life now, right? Like how you can
Mhm.
create this, like we limit ourselves to what we've been taught. And I've said, and I know we were talking about that earlier, but I'm so passionate about that intention and that creation and how powerful we can create in this one life now versus also, and also in the way we leave this body intention.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, intention and imagination is where everything starts. That's where all creative movement starts. So I would never say that you can create absolutely anything you want. I don't know if we can do that. We're working with our higher selves. And so I think there's a point of, I mean, I think it's always worth creating an intention or creating what in your mind what you want to experience. But then I also think there's great value in letting go of it and saying, or something better, like
Better.
maybe I don't know what's
Right.
the best for
Yes.
me, you know,
Right.
and then being willing to say yes to what shows up. But um, yeah, imagination intention is the it's the genesis of creative movement. It's the creative movement of the universe, of
Hmm.
everything that exists. Very
Yes.
powerful.
Yeah, I love that. So as we wrap up here, tell, like, you wrote a book, application. I have it right here. It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book. And on the back, that's amazing, right? Like with your eye, that was when you were in the hospital when you're
Yeah,
recovering from your
I was
accident.
in Walter Reed, yeah, Army Medical Facility. Yeah.
Huh. The application of impossible things. Explain to me the meaning of that title.
Well, it named itself, but I think that it's I think that we often it's easy to assume that miracles don't happen in this lifetime or that things that we can know as higher selves aren't applicable in our everyday lives. You know, people say, well, there's just wars. That's just the way it is. But what if we begin to imagine something different? What if we begin to set different intentions? What if it isn't the way it has to be? What if there's another way? I think that it's up to us to bring these things that might feel impossible, bring those down into this lifetime. I think that's why we're here, to embody that beauty and that incredible power and joy of being.
Yes. Oh, I love that beautiful mic drop moment. Um, what is your intention like for 2025? What is your, what are you doing? Like, what lights you up?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm working on a couple books and I'm hoping that I can get those finished up this year. And
And what is the book? Like, what are your,
yeah, I shouldn't, I was just, as soon
oh,
as I said that, I thought I shouldn't have said that. I don't like to talk about what they are before I finish them, but I will say one of them is like a collection of exercises or meditations that have my clients have told me have been very useful for them. It's kind of a little workbook.
oh, okay.
And the
Oh,
other
fun.
one is really essentially, it may be considered a memoir, but it's really essentially about how some of these ideas do come down and walk around in our everyday lives. So that's hopefully what I'll finish up this year. We'll
Uh,
see.
I love it. Oh, Natalie, it's been so fun. I could talk to you for hours because it's just like you've lit up a lot inside of me, and I really am grateful for
Oh,
your
thank you.
for our paths that have crossed. And I know there's no coincidences, and I love it.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a fun conversation.
Yes, you're so welcome. And I will hopefully have you'll be in my path again.
Sounds good.
Thank you.